So yeah, watch that. Yeah. Watch that. What about you, Eddie? I see Eddie is here. Eddie, did you get the opportunity to watch it?
I haven't gotten the opportunity to watch this yet because I don't have Netflix. I gotta get that sorted out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to see if I could find it on YouTube and elsewhere, but look like I have to.
Man, Eddie, you need the app, man.
Yeah, sign up for 1 month, do the trial, Eddie, and then
I was on them, I just canceled it. I did cancel it I think last year sometime when I guess it was when they was going up on the price and they wasn't really. And then because in the Caribbean, we don't get the same package as the US gets, we get them we just get a different type of so I just canceled it and I was just,
You
need a
VPN, man. You need a North
VPN.
So when you're
Yeah.
And I guess since everybody is here already, and good afternoon, it's 6:01.
Good afternoon, everybody.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. In intro, I encourage people to watch Dirty Money Cartel Bank on HSB. It's a case on HSBC and Mexican drug lords. So I encourage you to watch Dirty Money. It's an entire series. And then this is Inside Job. So I just pulled it up because Kendrick was saying that, there's an animated version. I guess this is the animated version. So you're not that one, but you want to watch this one that talks about the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers. And you'll be very surprised to see how the world works. And let's see if I can pull up the Cartel Bank one.
Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
You know what amazes me? James Robinson. He have the Tiger Cubs, right? I think he's a hedge fund manager. And he had 7 fellas who used to work underneath him. And one of those fellas eventually got caught with inside trading. I think he got fined somewhere in the neighborhood of about $16 million. And the firm ended up spending like 40-something million dollars. That fella eventually started a new firm called Archaeos. And it was a family, almost like a family fund. Goldman Sachs caught up in that. He lost like $2 billion in 2 days because he had actually invested all of his portfolio in the 3 companies, Viacom, CBS, and when they announced that they were selling off the majority of their shares, everything went down the toilet. Then it was 2 other Chinese-based companies and websites. He had everything turned hooked up to because what he had done is that he was using share leveraging. And I'm like, this fella lost all our money and he's gonna have more money. This is what the whole FTX things reminds me of. They're gonna have more money in about 3 years than what he lost.
Yeah, and see, the thing about it is the investors that suffer. Everybody is saying at the end of the day, he's still going to be a billionaire, right? And he is, because they haven't even arrested him. But it's the innocent that always suffer, or it's the investors that suffer. And if you watch, like I said, if you watch the Inside Job, you will be very surprised of this is why the younger generations feel like they could get away with it. I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show you. So when you go on, you know what to look for. So this one with the planes is the Inside Job. And this one over here is Dirty Money. And the first series starts off with how Volkswagen defrauded the entire world. And then there with HSBC. So there are different bonds, and all of that is related to HSBC. So just click on the HSBC case or watch as many as you want. But again, all of that is awareness training. Okay, so you are aware of what actually happens in the world. Because I know some compliance officers, having heart attacks, over organizations not, being compliant, not following the law, only worrying about the bottom line and not concerned. And when you watch these TV shows, they, reveal just why they can get away with it. And all it stems back to is who's in your network. Okay, because a lot of these guys, we all know about the buyouts or the bailouts in the United States with Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. We know about the subprime crisis. We know a lot of persons lost their homes, and these guys left with millions of dollars, and now they are the head of the Fed, okay, or they are head of some major corporation in the United States. So we as compliance officers, we must remember that we are there only to advise. We make no decisions, right? We remind the board and the execs of what the law states and how they are to be compliant. If they choose not to listen to what we say, then we need to start to look for another job, I guess, right of an STR. And you know, they're outside of our appetite now, so we need to move on. Okay? But don't get a heart attack when these organizations do not listen to your advice. Because it seems like a lot of them, you know, have some undercover connection with the regulators. And, you know, after watching these programs, I guess I have no faith. Okay, so awareness training, just so you are aware and you don't get caught up in these fiascos, and definitely you don't go to jail. Okay, because remember what I always say, only
Hey,
poor
Lord.
people go to jail, right? Only poor people go to jail.
Jail or
Speaking
two,
of-
I don't care all of this.
Yep.
Yeah, speaking about jail, like I said, I've been sharing all of the, since this whole FTX thing, as we had half of that being so intriguing. It's almost like, to me, it's like, you know, I know, but I never used to watch Young and the Restless, so anyways. But I guess for those who watch the soaps, it's like every episode, the drama gets more interesting. But it's like every time you go online, it's like some new revelation. I was watching a YouTube clip story done by the Washington Post that I shared in the group, and they was here last week just investigating the whole collapse of FTX, and it goes to show, and was showing the type of the links that the CEO have to a lot of political I guess politicians around the world, how we gave so much money to the Democrats, and then now we have the issue here where the current government is saying that they didn't receive any donations from him, which we know is not, which we know is a lie. You know, just the whole and the whole reason why he came to the Bahamas was because of our slack regulatory system, and so that there shows that we are a nation for sale. You know, it just makes us look, you know, like it's a banana republic, man. You know, it's like, oh, and that's why they left Hong Kong, and they say they did a whole worldwide search, and they searched every jurisdiction, and they found that the Bahamas was more favorable to them, and then boom, a year into it, it's a collapse, and so and so that there is it's just amazing how like that, and I don't even think, you know, this person, I mean, the CEO is going to be prosecuted because of the links and the ties that he has to politicians and all these different people. As you can see here, the government is just like they dragging their feet on, you know, going forward and investigating this whole situation there. The SEC, which he also has ties to the former chairman of the SEC. So and you know, and then he gave 40 million to the Joe Biden's you know, their re-election and all that. So that just goes to show, man. And now I'm seeing also another story. They say they purchased over I guess a couple $100 million, well, a couple $1 million worth of, not from the 70 million when they bought property, but they say over the 2 years they purchased over $100 and something million worth of property. and one law firm, I believe, is facilitated that particular those particular transactions, and we know that who that law firm is, so we have an idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Eddie, you know what I want us to pay attention to with all of this, though, not just the soap opera part of it, but this, I think it's good training ground for this industry, because there are a lot of upcoming firms, and of course, you know, the world is, like I say, reactive. Not only the Bahamas, the world is reactive, and these types of things help us now to put the controls in place. Now we see what the risks are, because I guess we didn't know previously, right? But now this fall of FTX have identified a lot of the vulnerabilities in the product into this new product that we want to bring to our shores. And there are other cryptocurrency exchanges. This was only the third in the world. A lot of persons are saying, okay, this is normal, for the stock market, you let the weed out the bad guys, and then you learn and you implement regulation. So now we, like I said, we are reactive, not proactive. Now that this has happened, what have we learned? And I see a lot of persons putting out pieces of the actual bankruptcy. I think today, Lennox Patent or the Bahamas agreed that it'll be, the case won't be in New York or the Bahamas, but it'll be Chapter 15 held in Delaware. So everything will be tried in Delaware. And I do think that would make it a public record. And so we want to identify the risks that we learn from, or we want to identify the proper controls that should have been in place. Okay, because like I said, we are the future leaders, and this is now how we become expert in this cryptocurrency, era that is so popular. It reminds me of when I crossed over. I was at Royal Retail or Commercial for 5 years, and then the remainder of my career, 15 years or so, was spent on Royal Trust. And when I went over to the trust department, I went into private banking, and they gave me 50 of the worst customers that they have. And when I say worst, I mean they were dormant accounts, customers who they hadn't talked to for 5 years. All the accounts were KYC deficient. All of some of the companies weren't incorporated. We couldn't identify the beneficial owner. I'm talking about every KYC deficiency you could have. There was the application form was partly filled out, stuff was missing, everybody didn't sign. So it was completely the worst book of clients. And people laughed at me and they said, oh, you were never going to reach those clients. You were never going to grow this portfolio and, what have you. But one person stood by me and he said, Bullard, this is how you will learn. I guarantee you, if you fix these accounts by the end of of you fixing these accounts, you would have learned how to open an account, the account process, how to verify and what an account should have, and then how to audit it. And in 2 years, I was able to fix all those accounts, and rest assured, I did learn the proper way to onboard till they made me train the people who was onboarding. Then they made me train the verifiers. Then I became the quality assurance person. Then I became the head of business support and operations. Okay, from those 50 very bad accounts that nobody wanted. Okay, so like I said, there are a lot of things: misappropriation, mishandling of customer funds, right down to communicating and conflicts of interest. So now we know what should be in the law, and when they rewrite this or amend their act, of course, they're gonna have to put out a white paper to come out to the industry for the industry to give feedback. So we want to look at that white paper and make sure that there's still no gaps. Okay, but for those who are going to go into cryptocurrency, because I know one or two of you have questioned about, my office is now offering this product. What are the risks? How do I learn? This is how you learn. Okay, Eddie, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, the fact that it's being held in Delaware makes it even, I guess, better in
More
terms of
transparent. More transparent.
Yeah, because make it more transparent, and now all of the information is going to come out. Now, I know I've seen reports where they say a lot of Bahamian companies, entities are filed as creditors, are enjoined as creditors on the bankruptcy list, including I think one in Abaco, and so a bunch of other subsidiary companies, and a lot of people trying to figure out, okay, what are the companies, who are the principal owners of these companies, what was their affiliation to FTX, and who are the backers of these companies. So it's going to be very interesting in the next couple of weeks to see who ultimately, who are the directors of these companies, the principals of these companies, and all of
Or
that.
the
So,
ultimate beneficial owners.
no, exactly.
UBOs.
And so that's going to show UBOs. Yeah. So you're going to be very surprised and shocked. But we all know politicians or family friends and lovers of politicians are going to be
Top of
some
the
of
list.
those direct. Yeah, top of the list. And so
because they
but
sent out. They said, did you see the analysis where they sent out how the customer base is, and I think they have 4%. They did a pie chart and they said 4% is from the Bahamas, and people are like, oh, okay, it's only 4%, but we need to look at all those companies incorporated in the BVI. And in Panama, those 24 and 25%, I guarantee you some Bahamians in there.
And so with that being public, I wonder at this point, could we Google that and get that list, or is it that as a thing that be
They don't have any names, they just have it by jurisdiction right now. And by country, yeah, they have, I guess, whether it's US citizens or Bahamian citizens. I saw it somewhere today. I got so many things, Eddie, I don't even know, but I can look it up and send you the pie chart.
And I can't have a question, but under this, the government now, we don't have no more investigative journalists, because I think under the last administration, you had all type of private eye and Inspector Gadget.
They buy them all out. Hey, all of them now work for the government. All of them now.
Yeah, because I remember a particular news reporter who is of a show. He used to be doing all type of investigative reports and
no more
doing this and all that.
Gone are those days.
Because now it's so easy, because all you got to do now is go to the companies register and just basically do a company search and find out, okay, who was the owner of FTX, Abaco, or whatever, and you could get the list of who was the UBOs of that.
Yeah, but when we, I guess we got to look at the Pandora papers or the Panama papers, and we may find out some of the UBOs. We probably have to go on that website, but. Yeah, our investigative press is no longer, because of course we know in America, the media is controlled, right? They put out what they want you to know, and so therefore, our politicians learn and they made sure hire at least. I mean, they even give the person, and I saw him today at the conference, just the loudmouth gossiper who's just be on Facebook spewing foolishness. He even have a position, okay? And we know there's one on the PLB side, one on the F&M side. The F&M did hire their own, and the PLB hired their own. Big dress up in suit, big conference. I say, my Lord, yes, who you know, okay? I just mad, family and lovers and friends and right. I building up this network right now. Y'all future leaders, y'all hurry up, get position. This bullet needs y'all.
You should have taken the 100K what they was offering you back in the day. You'd have been straight.
I would have been straight by now.
On a card, black card,
on car, food, everything. Office with a view, and Miss Bullet loves views. Miss Bullet loves views. Anyway, let's hear from Gerardo. And wait, let me ask, who is C. Sawyer? Because you have to put your full government name for the register. Who is C. Sawyer? Is C. Sawyer there?
You can't work for us. You too honest.
That's what it is, Juliet. Sharonda Sawyer. Okay, Sharonda, this is your first day? You could hover over your name and change it. Oh, okay. But make sure I get the recordings from Miguel. Did you get the welcome message? And aware of what you need to do for homework? No? Okay, put your email in the chat and I'll send it to you. Okay. Gerardo, go ahead.
Yeah, good night, everybody. I apologize if y'all hear the little kitties in the background. I doing double duties right now, so you gotta forgive me. Eddie, I wanna kind of expound on something you said about that touted speaker for the now present government who touted himself on investigative journal. Isn't it such a conundrum that he, like many others, let's look at our good brother Renard Henfield with the We March Bahamas, right? As soon as they start to create ruckus, the government, the present government, that is, recruit these persons, give them a position and shut them up. So with all that being said, was your heart really in it? Was the now speaker, right? Was his heart really in it, or he himself was looking for some type of clout? I question these fellas, man. I question these fellas, the Lincoln Beans of the world with their ulterior motives, the Maria Doxons of the world. I question their motives because, if the shoe were on the other hand, if they were so, if they became the present government, you could imagine what type of leadership this country would be under. I like KB say, this a jokey town with jokey leaders. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how we're gonna fix it. The only way that we could fix it is we first got to fix ourselves, because we can't wait to ascend to offices to fix it, because there's some things behind the scene, right? But the oligarchs, by the time you get in there, you come with all these, great ideas in terms of how you're going to fix this broken wheel. But at the end of the day, when you get there, you hold your head and you say, oh God, were you really prepared to come through on what you said, Miss Bullet? Sometimes I get so discouraged, man. Just
Gerardo,
even,
I know I am with you 100% because this is a very evil world that we live in, but and all of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others, right?
what is so crazy? Just even looking at it, just looking at the assignment, right? I mean, all these politicians in this island, in this country, all of the speculation, because everything is speculation, everything is alleged. We understand the but presumption, because of our, Westminster system, but with all those allegations, not one conviction. So you see why, excuse me, daddy talking. You see how we are looked upon, with this side eye when it comes to, our international, media, our international colleagues. It almost look like you said, Eddie, you're right. It makes us look like there's some type of banana republic. Being a politician in this country is very beneficial. It is crazy you only serve 2 terms in parliament and you get pension for the rest of your life. It means you got to spend 30 years on a job, right? To just get the same thing that they afforded in 10 years, which is freaking crazy.
Yeah, but
But anyway,
like
like
you
you
said,
said, Miss Butter,
Gerardo, there are so many bad examples. There are so many unethical examples, and these are the people that prosper. And so, like I say, this is why I want you all to watch those 2 shows just for awareness training. But a big part of ICA now is ethics, and I was wondering, like, is it that bad? And now I know, like I say, after the awareness, I see how really bad it is, and I see that, like I say, these persons, they run mega institutions, they run Fortune 500 companies, fail, the government bails them out, then they get promoted to the highest office in government. You in charge of the affairs, like,
yeah,
it's
but what
crazy.
I would like to say this. You said that these people prosper, but they only prosper but for a season.
Yeah.
But
Will,
for a
will,
season.
will Ben Bernanke been the head of the Fed for at least 30 years now, 20 years. Watch it, you'll see. One after the next, failed institutions, and then the Standard and Moody's and all of those rating agencies still giving the companies a AAA rating. How possible? So like I say, you all take some time and watch it, and then we perhaps talk about it next week in class. Okay, very good, guys. Anybody else with the newspaper?
Yeah, I took a look at it this afternoon, and my 5 cents on it. I looked at how over the weekend we resumed back with our jollification.
We can't hear you, Gerardo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I was talking about the I saw in the business section, I found very interesting with respect to the jollification and the rollout of the sand dollar. How it was, it was received, and how some Bahamian vendors were still kind of reluctant to change. You know, in this country, you know, every time we try to do some things progressive, you always have, you know, I guess we're stuck in our ways, so to speak. Some persons was not, you know, open to it. I think the sand dollar in terms of this new wave of you know of an e-wallet, so to speak, is it's going to break barriers. You know, it's also going to, I would hope, for a lot of Bahamians to take that money, you know, out of the banks was actually ain't making really no sense, right? Because we understand how the banking system works, and just more so divulge into, you know, the sand dollar and let's seamlessly roll it out. It's been rolled out in the Family Islands, but have it more robust here and in the wider islands, Nassau, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Eleuthera, so on, etc.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see, you know, how it's going to work. But I am confused about it now because I was to the seminar and I should have asked, but I left there confused about the central bank is saying that they don't open the accounts, right? You go to a bank and your money is on that bank account. And I understand we're trying to move to this cashless system, but isn't the money still in the bank? I mean, how are we moving away from any fees? How are we moving away? You still have to have the bank account, correct? To load this digital asset thing. How do you load? Gerardo, do you know or no?
Um, you're right. I guess some facet of it is still bank related. I really can't speak to, I can't speak to what you just said, but when I look at how the application of it and the purpose is being served, when we look at, you know, some you know, Family Islanders who, you know, who don't have the opportunity, you know, like some elder persons, you know, everybody isn't as astute as other people, but I believe that the application of the sand dollar, you know, not only, you know, for some of the more major robust corporation, but for your mom and pop store, I'm just looking at it how, you know, it's, for me, it ease of doing business, so to speak.
Okay, correct. Because I normally go to North Eleuthera, and in order for me to get any type of banking, I actually have to drive 30 minutes and catch a boat, or I have to drive 2 hours. And I drove 2 hours. So I said, I ain't catching no boat today. I drove 2 hours and the ATM was down on a Saturday. So, you know, I was screaming. I was screaming. So, yeah, so it definitely will help the Family Islands. But they just, like I say, I'm wondering, because, you know, they're hopping on, of course, a lot of the population is unbanked. And this is for the unbanked. But if you still need a bank account in order to get a digital wallet, I'm wondering how that'll work. And then today at the seminar, they said, once there's an agent, this is where you could go and get cash. And I'm familiar with that agent in Eleuthera. And I've been there quite a number of times, and they only give me $100, and it's like, that's our limit. Now, I've never used the sand dollar, but I have swiped my card and they would only give me $100. So I'm wondering if the sand dollar would have that type of limit as well. You know what I mean? Gerardo?
Hey,
Okay.
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So they may need to tweak one or two things.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously, it's, I wouldn't say it's in its infancy stage. I'm assuming they're still building the infrastructure around it, but I'm just talking about, you know, how we as Bahamians sometimes, because we're so, you know, still set in our ways, you know, we're just reluctant to change, and we have to, as a part of, you know, maturing as a nation, I feel as if though we just need to change our outlook on things done before, as opposed to how, you know, things are just moving now, current trends, the way the world is moving. That's you know, that's the
It's
point I'm trying to
definitely
get.
a good thing, and it's good that we are the leader in putting out this digital asset. I think they said that the Bahamas was the only regulator in the world that put out a digital asset, or we're the first. So that's commendable. Okay, excuse me. I have something coming in from the chat from Ms. Dean saying that she heard Ms. Pentad speak last evening in regards to FBX being registered. Can you ask if anyone, as an IBM or IBC, I think she means, if anyone has a chance to get the full story? Anybody heard Mr. Pentad? No?
No, I didn't.
They applied to be registered.
They applied to be, because I'm getting all sorts of, in terms of where they are incorporated is what we're talking about, correct?
Correct.
Right. So I thought they were incorporated in Antigua and Barbuda, and that was a concern for me because I know that the Bahamas is a Schedule I country, that which means that we have a similar framework in place as America, as Russia, as the UK. But Antigua and Barbuda is a Schedule II country, which means that they don't fully accept all of the 40 recommendations. And so they have some in place, but they don't have others. And I know one of our largest customers was, I think, the government of Antigua and Barbuda, and we were advised to close out their account. So I'm surprised if that would be true, that they were incorporated in July. Anybody I think that's what she's referring to. Anybody could verify that? Because it seems like where they are incorporated is, persons are saying the Bahamas, but somebody else said St. Kitts, and then somebody said Antigua and Barbuda. So I don't know. I guess when this same waiting on this report that's coming out of Delaware, I should have all the correct information with attachments, hopefully. Okay, so we'll see. Ashley Stubbs.
Yeah, I came across this article in the Tribune about this Austrian developer that wants to sue the government for $3 billion.
But we can't take another one.
Yeah, over a project in Treasure Key. They claim that the government, I guess, blocked or they were denied from getting the project. They were trying to purchase a few more hundreds of acres of land in Treasure Key to go ahead and go about with this development project. And I guess he thought, or he had a conversation previously, and he thought that it would have been approved. And to his surprise, the Bahamas, is BIA, who's that again? I think it's Bahamas Investment Authority, rejected the efforts.
Yeah, but there's no.
So now he's suing for all of his loss and damage. Pardon?
No, I mean, you suing based on what? There's an application process. You're approved or denied. Yeah, you spend a lot of money.
They're
trying to get to
the potential profits.
Sorry?
He's also suing for potential profits he would have made as well.
Okay, so good luck on suing any government,
Yeah.
but good luck. I know that.
Yeah, that was something that as well, saying
Sorry?
that how can he take, somebody commented and said, how can he take the government to court and expect to win is beyond me. They can turn anyone down. That is the nature of the beast.
Correct. And the thing about it is, I know before Ryan Pinder became Attorney General, there was, I think, about 5 or 6 persons who had sued the government for various reasons: wrongful dismissal, police officer shooting the family member, all sorts of stuff. And Attorney General Pinder was adamant that they were locked up for 10 years. Like, these people had won their case like 10 years ago, and the government just never paid. And so he was, he worked on paying those people. So I don't know who was in there who needed to get paid, but he could sue the government, and if he win, he could pay 10 years. I hope that Ryan Pinder, the Attorney General at that time, because the government don't pay.
That too. And he have other contracts they claim. He lives in life and he has other contracts against South Ocean. I just feel like it's greed at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, these people, they have to do environmental assessments, they have to do all sorts of stuff, and that costs them a lot of money. However, they are in the application process, and I'm certain, that we have the correct verbiage in our agreements, in our account opening process to say that this is just an application, this is not a guarantee. So you could go
Yeah.
right ahead.
Oh, and
Best of luck. Best of luck to
there was
him.
one more thing. This one isn't related to the Bahamas, but Todd Chrisley from Chrisley Knows Best, they were sentenced for their tax evasion case.
Yeah.
They had created, I guess, fraudulent accounts to try and get loan approvals. And they were finally sentenced like 12 years and 7 years. They were accused
and
of
that was a slap on the wrist.
Right. And his accountant as well. The accountant
Right.
got 3 years in prison and 3 years, I think, supervised release or something like that.
Yeah, but if you watch it in a couple of years, if they stop being so, they flaunted. That's how they get catch, because they wanted to brag and carry on about how much houses they have and
Right,
all these valuables or assets they have, and then you defraud in your tax report. People are watching this show that works in the IRS and saying, "But how could you have this house in your tax return?" Says A, B, or C. So they kind of told on themselves from just flaunting. Yeah, but they still got a slap on the wrist because he was supposed to get 19 to 20 and she was supposed to get 12 or 13. And so they lucky. They probably spend 5 each and then pay the government and get out. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Yeah. Okay, Kendrick. So again, that's a good case to use when you need, if you're for the final exam and you're writing on tax evasion. Good, very current case to use.
Yeah, I saw that. I think the wife got 7 years and the husband got 12.
Yeah.
Back to Gerardo, in regards to the sand dollar. To my understanding, from what I heard, can't confirm it, I think the AFIs were hesitant in getting involved with it. Could it be just a theory that I have? Why would I introduce the sand dollar if it's a competing product with my debit card? It's just a thought. It could be whereby the AFIs themselves don't want to push that product because it competes with one of their products. I would then say, why does the central bank look at other means of implementing digital currency in another format, i.e. the cooperative movement? Look at another financial institution to then begin to use that particular product. Just choose a different platform, because I don't think, unless you're going to strong arm the banks, you're not going to get the banks to buy on with that. Not when it's a competing product.
Well, Kendrick, so I spoke to somebody who lives in China, and they said, I think about 60% of China is like cashless.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
That is scary though, Miss Bullet. Let me tell you what, I was watching something on that the other day where they said that China is really heading towards it, where they gave like each citizen like $2,000 dollars, but they gave them that particular amount as a tryout. If somebody can press one button and basically seize up everything on you, and it's a communist regime, that doesn't leave room for some trepidation.
It does, but there again, this is what and the other 4 chapters talk about. This is the risks associated with it, and what controls are you going to put in place to protect yourself against those risks? Okay, because each product will have a risk. The debit cards have a risk, right? Somebody hacked into Atlanta's front desk, and so everybody who swiped their card and they hacked in on a like say a Thanksgiving weekend when they had 91% occupancy and check-ins were out the roof. More than 100 people checked in that day. So all those cards were compromised, right? And so what controls do you put in place at Atlanta's front desk to make sure that their system isn't hacked? Okay, the same thing with, remember now, this is the new way of the world. This is a way of the country not being seen as cash intensive. It's a digital asset, not a cryptocurrency. So we want to make sure that we separate the two. We don't want people saying, look what just happened to FTX. No, It's a digital asset. It's not cryptocurrency. It's completely different. Okay. And so therefore, if you want to be a trendsetter, if you want to keep up with the Joneses and be a mover and shaker, you have to, you know, grow with this technology is the new norm. Is the new norm. And what they are promoting is that the merchant it gets like 3 to 4%, right? And I thought it was against the law, but merchants, when I go to Spanish warehouse, they tell you straight away, they say, if you pay cash, this is your bill. If you pay by your debit card, which is cash, I paid for something that was over $500, and I think the percentage was $38 that I had to pay. And I said, oh no, that's gas for my car. There's no way I could pay you $38 in fees, right? And so I said, please send me to the nearest ATM. And I had to walk, I was in Spanish, I had to walk to an ATM, but I was not gonna pay $38. Okay, so $Dollar is saying, whereas debit cards are 3 to 4%, we are 2%, and they are looking at ways to decrease that. Okay, so I guess that's the, you know, but in keeping up with the Joneses, Kendrick, and being all this new tech, all of this is with the ease of doing business, and I guess attracting the right investors and what have you. Yeah, Jalika, you say it's against the law and you can report them, but who does anything? When you tell consumer protection, for years I've been you know, you go into Lowe's, you go to the Chinese, they tell you, you know, because I don't like to carry cash, and so I'm the type of person who could swipe just for a soda, right? And I'm told you cannot swipe for less than $20. And so of course I spoke to, I said, do you know that's against the law? Visa says they will just, you know, you'll not be able to accept their service if you don't follow. And they don't care. They don't care. And I opened an account recently because I have what do you call this machine to accept debit card payments. And I was told you can absorb the 4%, or you can add it, or you can charge your customer. And this is how you just tell your customer that if they pay by their debit card, this extra 4%. So the banks are telling you that's what you could do. So who upholding this law, Jalika? Who? Not a soul. And in Spanish West, everywhere you go, they mean that. You paying that, or they ain't accepting, you know, or you pay cash. So yeah. Gerardo, go ahead.
Apologies, Ms. Bullet. I was doing some stuff. I don't raise my hand by mistake.
Okay,
Yes,
good. Okay, guys. And again, all of this is you want to keep abreast, you want to develop your social skills, you want to know what's happening in your country and in the world. So that you seem to be very aware. And like I say, it all falls under developing your skills and awareness training. Okay, so very good. So now we are going to move on to risk. And the next 4 chapters in the book deal with risk. So we'll be talking about this for a little while. So we basically just looked over risk in intro, and of course after 218, we put it in intro because of course it was the very first recommendation 1. But after marking these final exams, you know, I thought that persons grasp, you know, the basics of it, but it seems that, and it isn't easy to just have one class on risk and walk away with the understanding of how the framework works. So it grows on you, but it is very important to understand what they mean when they say the risk-based approach, okay? And so even though you might have been the intro, and you know, I'll just do a full overview so everybody could be on the same page, okay? And hopefully when I pull up the Basel Committee's site, we'll be familiar with that, and it'll jog our memories. Okay, so chapter 4 starts off with the risk-based approach. Okay, and remember 40 recommendations. The very first recommendation says what? Countries must assess their risks. And once they assess their risks, they must put controls in place. Okay, and so if countries must assess their risks, then everybody in the industry has to assess their risk and channel that information up to the country. Okay, so all of the banks, all of the insurance companies, all of the gaming board, all of the lawyers, real estates, and whoever make up the financial services industry, okay, must assess their risk, send this information in, and then explain what controls we are going to put in place. Okay, so the risk associated with politically exposed persons. What would an institution do? Okay, and so some say we won't do business with politically exposed, the conservative banks. Some say we will do business with politically exposed persons, but these are the controls that we will put in place to protect ourselves against politically exposed persons. Okay, so the first thing is in our anti-money laundering policy internally, we have a section that talks about undesirable accounts, right? And in that section, we say that undesirable accounts are A, B, and C. Somebody who is either charged or it's that alleged, right? So the conservative banks will say if it's alleged, the non-conservative Swiss banks will say if they are charged, right? So let's remember now, the risk is politically exposed persons. The control is, first, we put a section in our AML directive and say how we will handle it. So when we hear that Adrian Gibson is alleged, or he is charged with corruption and bribery from water and sewage, or Shane Gibson, or Frank Smith, or Alma Chase Campbell, our directive tells us exactly what we should do. If it's alleged, we de-risk them and we close out the account. Or if they're charged, we de-risk them and close out the account. Okay, so that's the first control that we have in place. We have a plan on how we handle undesirable accounts. The next control is that we don't only let the compliance officer approve, we let the board approve them. Okay, so the highest level in the institution has to say, yes, we want to do business with Shane Gibson, yes, Adrian Gibson, yes, Brave Davis, yes, any politician, okay? Or we cannot open that account. Then we want to assign them to a senior person. Then we want to mark them as high risk, which means they will be subjected to enhanced due diligence. Then we want to say that we're only going to do business with domestic pets, not international pets. Or if we're going to do both domestic and international, what controls will be put in place to protect the organization? Okay, so recommendation 1, assess your risks, put controls in place to protect your institution against that risk. Write your risk appetite. Okay, do I have an appetite for pizza, or do I have an appetite for KFC? In AML terms, will I do business with Russia, high-risk jurisdictions, Iran, or will I stick to the Canada, US, and the UK? That's your appetite. Will I open accounts with bearer shareholders? Bearer shares are not issued any longer by the Bahamas, but we can still open up a bearer share account that was registered in Switzerland, registered in the BVI, registered in St. Kitts.
Ms. Bullard, what's a bear share account again? Bear share.
Okay, a bearer share account is where the share certificate does not have a name on it. It says to the bearer. Okay, and
Okay.
so the risk with that is that you come to the bank, you open up the account, and we approve you. Of course, we do all the due diligence on Eddie. Eddie then takes that share certificate and gives it to Julian Smith, right? We have not verified Julian. We did not agree that this account could be open for Julian Smith, right? And so this will be a company account. And so that's the risk with bearer shares. Okay, that the shares are transferred to Ben Laden without our knowledge, right? And so if you would find again, the very non-conservative banks, they say, yeah, we do accept bearer share accounts. And again, this must be in your AML directive. We accept bearer share accounts. These are the controls that we have in place to protect ourselves against these shares being transferred without our knowledge. We want a letter from the person holding the shares, and we want a letter from the beneficial owner that states, I will not transfer without advising the bank where my account is open. Because many times before 2018, Eddie opened his account and say, oh, I transferred the shares to Julian. And Julian was really acting as a power of attorney on the account, signing everything. But now we find out that Julian is the beneficial owner. We didn't approve Julian, okay? So back in the day, a lot of people used to hide behind bearer shares, just like how they hide behind cryptocurrency now, okay? So recommendation 1, assess your risk, put the controls in place. Then we want a risk framework. The risk framework is threefold. Risk appetite. Who am I going to do business with? What type of service and products will I offer? Must be documented, okay? We don't want our salespeople out on the road talking to people in Russia when we don't have an appetite for Russia. And this was before Russia was sanctioned, okay? Then risk assessment. What are the reputational risks? What are the regulatory risks? What are the operational risks? And then risk rating, high, medium, or low. Okay, is that clear? So first you need to understand recommendation 1. Then second, you need to understand the framework. Risk appetite, risk assessment, and then risk rating. Okay, and I think when we get to chapter 7, we look closely at the risk rating. So you might have seen this before. Let me try to pull something up. That's not it. Are we on board? You all still there, or you all fall asleep on that?
No, we still there, we listening to
We good? Okay. All right. All right.
Was there a formula for risk rating? Or,
Yeah. There's no
or criteria?
there's no set formula. You can either do a scoring, or you can do, like in my last institution, they had a data risk rating where they said, if you are a PEP, put yes. If you are from one of these high risk jurisdictions, put yes. If you do business in a high risk jurisdiction, put yes. So at the end of the day, you could add 4 yeses, and then once you add 5 yeses, you became high risk. They only had high and low. Most institutions have high, medium, and low. Right? So you can do data, or you can do scoring. So I'm just going to show you because you're asking, but when we get to chapter 7, Julian, we will cover that. So this is like what a standard risk rating looks like, where, you know, they ask the domicile and professional sector and the country and type and what have you. That's in at the institution level. We are going to go to the Basel site and we're going to show you their methodology. This is the methodology, what makes up the risk rating. How do we determine if you're high, medium, or low? Okay, but we'll cover that more in chapter 7. We'll look at it on the country level today. Okay, so I was trying to find the risk assessment to show you, because appetite is pretty easy to understand. Just what you, same thing as appetite. Who are we gonna do business with, right? Risk assessment is a little bit more tricky because persons, you know, aren't really familiar, and like I said, it's new. So I'm trying to pull it up, but it's not coming up. Okay, here it is. So this is how a risk assessment would look. And this is what we have to submit into the regulators. Now, remember now, all the laws were just changed in 2018, and the regulators are also on a learning curve. So imagine receiving risk ratings from every bank in Nassau, right? Or within the jurisdiction, or the family islands, or what have you, right? And if you look at this, it talks about credit risk, market risk, interest rate risk, operational risk, right? And then you classify. How would I classify the impact or the gross risk? Is it high, medium, or low? And you put a description of the concern, and then you describe it. Like under this one, we talked about operational fraud. What do we do to protect the organization from operational fraud? Okay, and we say it's the likelihood is low because we have implemented the 3 levels of defense. And I don't know if in your organizations they have implemented the 3 levels of defense. And so the 3 levels of defense are the front office and the managers are the first level to protect the institution against risk. The compliance department is the second level, and then audit is the third level. Okay, and you just document exactly what procedures you have and how you protect your institution against these various risks. Okay, and so that's risk assessment. Okay, and then, like I said, we would move over to risk rating, where we decide whether our organizations are high, medium, or low. Okay, so that's the risk framework. You send all of this into your regulator, and your regulator approves your framework. Okay, and then if you if you start to offer a new product or service, you must then update your risk assessment with the risk associated with that new product or service. What the regulators are doing now is they're tying this to how your organization is risk rated overall. So what they did is they sent out emails to the organizations and saying, can you prove to us whether you're high, medium, or low? And so basically from our risk assessment, we determined that we were medium, right? And they argued with us back and forth, but you know, over controls, over credit risk, over market risk. And then of course they look at your portfolio. So if the majority of your portfolio is from Venezuela or Switzerland or high risk jurisdictions, then of course your organization is going to be overall high risk. So you will find that a lot of organizations say, listen, yes, we do have an appetite for PEPs. However, we already have 20 PEPs on our book. And if we add one more PEP, we are going to be high risk overall. And we are going to be subjected to enhanced due diligence. And we don't want that. not only are we going to be subjected to enhanced due diligence, they are trying to tie audits to the risk rating. So that means we have to be audited every year. Okay, so that's why you would see like the Scotia banks and the Royal Bank before the 218 law, we had all the flowers and Sabas accounts. After the 18 law, we don't do business with the number business because they are too cash intensive. We had all the cash and go accounts. Now they are too cash intensive, so we don't do business with them. Okay, so now in some aspects, the number businesses are unbanked and the money services businesses are unbanked. So what did we do, Kendrick? We strategically distributed the sand dollar through them.
Okay.
To see if the Canadian banks will now accept their accounts. So as you see when they announced it, go to cash and go for the sand dollar, go to Omni. Who else is out there? Whatever the money services businesses are. Let's see if now that would decrease your risk and Scotia will open up your account or Royal Bank or CIBC. Now, I don't know why I guess they didn't find a way to put it through the number houses yet, but I'm certain they're working on that. Okay, let's see some hands. Bria, go ahead. Gerardo, your hand just still up, eh? Let me try to put it down.
No, I just
question in.
literally, yes, mom. I just literally put it up. I'm in between class and also watching, the news. I'm not sure if my other cohorts are doing this, but I see where, former cabinet minister Lanisha Roll, the police is actively under investigation. So I guess we'll see. It's an ongoing investigation. We'll see what transpires as it comes to fruition.
Oh, Lord. They digging up the dirt. They digging up the dirt. Okay. Bria, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify risk indicators. That would be identified risks.
Which page you looking in the book or when you say
Yeah,
risk,
in the book.
which page you looking at?
Page 30.
Okay, which section? Because I have an old book.
Oh, it is okay. I can read the paragraph.
Yeah, go ahead.
A risk-based approach used by a company depends on the company's risk appetite. Risk appetite is the approach the company takes to risk. This means that all levels of risk should be assessed. Obviously, the company should take note of the risk indicators when conducting business.
Okay, so when you choose a country to do business with, then you need to know the risks associated with that country. When you decide to offer cryptocurrency, then you should find out the risks associated with cryptocurrency.
So that would be identified risk, right? Or no? Is that different?
When you say identified risk, what do you mean?
Honestly, I read this when I was reading the chapter earlier. And I think I forget what I even meant by it. Normally I put notes, but I think I was thinking about inherent risk. Yeah, I think I was thinking about inherent risk. Sorry.
Okay, so once you do, okay, if a lot of people took on Latin America, right? The Latin American business, right? And so you wanted to look at the risks associated with doing business with Latin America. And of course, a lot of presidents were being impeached. Governors of the central bank were going to jail. Account officers were going to jail, right? And so you want to look at how risky is it to do business with Latin America, okay? In organizations, there's something called a KRI, right? A key risk indicator. And let me just put it in simple terms because maybe Latin America would confuse you. We open a certain number of accounts, we closed a certain number of accounts. And so each month we would say our targets are to open up 20 accounts each month. So in this KRI form that we kept, if you did not meet that target, we would have, I guess, a red light, a green light, and a yellow light. Okay, if you met it, you would get the green light when you put the number in, because there was a formula. If you didn't meet it, or you almost met it, you would get yellow. And if you didn't meet it drastically, I guess, if you're supposed to open 20 and you open 15, you would probably get a medium, and then you would have to give an explanation, just like a paragraph. But if you got a red light, you had to write a full report on what happened this month. Why did you not meet your target? Okay, the same thing with closing accounts. The KRI for a closing account was if more than 5 accounts close, you got a red indicator, meaning you had to write a full report. And then there was another section that had a dollar value attached to that. And so if I worked at Royal, to open an account was 250,000, you had to have a net worth of 5 million. So I think it was 500,000. If the total loss to the bank was $500,000, then of course you had to write a full report. And I'd say exactly what you did to stop that account from closing. If you send the person a gift, because remember we were wealth management, or if you actually hop on, because we had $10 million clients, if you actually hop on a plane and go on and have lunch with that client, trying to keep that business. So I think in the context of KRIs, that's what they mean. You tracking your risk every month to make sure that you don't go outside certain thresholds. Okay, and that's what they refer to as KRIs.
Yeah, based off your explanation, it seemed internal, and what I meant by identified risk was like from the intro textbook, it identified risk was pretty much identifying the risks with implementing certain services, delivery channels, doing business with a particular person or country, stuff like that. And it seemed more that would be more external, but based off of the definition you give just now or the explanation you give just now, seem more internal.
Right. The KRI, right. So again, like I said, you could use it internally or externally. Right. But normally in institutions, the KRIs are senior managers monitor them monthly. And so with the open and close accounts, it was the private banking and the trust departments that had to write this report. And then I would have to make sure that the report made sense, because a lot of times they just try to fill it in with nonsense and not give reasons. And of course, a lot of them, if this weekend wasn't available, they didn't just hop on the plane and travel, or sometimes they didn't even call the customer, they just let the account close. And so, we wanted them to action these various, and track everything that we had documented. Okay. So with that framework, a very important term is methodology. Okay, because we say a lot of things and we don't know how to explain it. A lot of people, we say enhanced due diligence. People don't know what that means. That's the most answered wrong question out of my essays. What do you do to carry out enhanced due diligence? People can't tell you. Or risk-based approach. Again, they can't explain it. Okay, so in the past, there used to be a rules-based approach, which was a tick the box type of, do you offer high-risk accounts, yes or no? But the risk-based approach is actually assessing the risks, documenting the products and services, and individually saying what product or service and what risk is associated with it, and what you are going to do to protect your institution and the industry against the risks associated with it. Okay, and so we move on to methodology. And again, we want to ensure that we understand methodology. And so we're gonna use we looked at the Basel Index, of course, the Basel Index, risk rates, countries around the world, and Transparency International. And we do have an identified risk board. I looked through the newspapers again. They did not announce that they submitted our risk assessment. The last still from 2020, when they said they were going to submit it in March 2022, but they haven't confirmed. But as we can see, our rating dropped from 6.34 to 5.93. So obviously we were assessed, and thank God, we put a lot of controls in place to make sure that we didn't come out overall as high risk, because a lot of countries just simply say they don't do business with high risk jurisdictions. Okay, so that's a positive. We want to look at methodology. And somebody had asked a question. I think Kendrick was in your class where I put this on the exam because persons couldn't get it. Do you recall this, Kendrick, or no?
Ms. Bullet, that's been over a year now.
Oh, okay. I must say was in you. Okay, so the methodology is, how do you decide who is high risk, medium risk, or low risk? Because of course, persons are gonna, or countries are gonna have a problem. Definitely, if we became, and you see these areas, you see Haiti, nobody does business with these countries, right? And so, of course, if we had come out as high risk, we were going to say, please explain to us how you arrived at this high risk, risk rating. And so, therefore, on the country level, they share their methodology with us. On the client level, we do not share our methodology, but it is important to understand how it works. Please don't work in the compliance department and don't understand how you risk rating clients, because a lot, when the regulators come in, it has always been found that the risk ratings are wrong. Okay, and we'll talk about that when we get to chapter 7. But these are the domains, how countries are risk rated. So there are 5 domains. And of course, quality of the AML framework is 65%. So that same FATF mutual evaluation, follow-up and reports is 35%. So of course, you see the Attorney General saying we'll be one of the jurisdictions that are 40 out of 40. But of course, we're not gonna make that because of this FTX, proving that their bill is ineffective, right? And so therefore, we worked on all of the recommendations to ensure that we are largely compliant in all of them, so that we could get, good points on this mutual evaluation report. And of course, with this tax justice, we just updated the penal code to say, we are going to report. We're no longer tax haven, but if you listen to the news on FTX, everybody's saying, of course, we know that Bahamas is one of those tax havens, and those jurisdictions have the strong secrecy laws, but we no longer have them. And so, but of course, like I said, the media is paid and organized, and so this is what they're told to say, and they're not doing their homework. And of course, we have no investigative reports. Reporters still lash back out at them and say, no, this is not so. In fact, that's how Lincoln Baines started when he was a lawyer. He was with the Anna Nicole case, and he flew to CNN in Atlanta, and him and the role guy was there, speaking on behalf of the case, and he actually caused a very journalist, a very influential journalist, to be fired because she had lied. And he flew there to Atlanta and not testified on CNN, but announced that she had lied, and they investigated and found that she did, and she was fired over Anna Nicole. Yeah, and Lincoln Baines did that. But anyway, so U.S. Department of International Narcotics Control, and thank God Finland did route him out years ago and say, our little country, if your big country can't do it, how our little country could do it, right? So of course, trafficking in persons, we have a very big problem. We're a transit country. And so, of course, we don't get no points in those two areas, right? And then we go down to corruption and bribery. Of course, we looked at our corruption perception index. As we see our politicians being brought before the court, it's at 65% now. And I always tell the story where I was sending wires to Russia and Madagascar and Kuwait 1 week, and the next week I was told we don't no longer do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. And that means the people went to work that week, but I was not able to pay them. So they had to find an alternative motive, right? Or alternative way to get paid. The person was still in school and had the school fee to be paid, could not do it, okay? And then our bribery index is 81, but it's you know, up in the ranks with other you know, countries that are known for bribes. And then financial transparency, and of course, I know under the administration, he just said it every time he spoke. We want to be accountable and transparent. I don't know what they did to me, but I know that in almost every single when he was on the TV, he talks about transparency and accountability. You know, I don't know what the Bahamas did to be more transparent and accountable. But anyway, as you can see, all of that is a part of the domains: political and legal risk, public transparency and accountability, financial transparency and standards. Go ahead, Bria.
Just to touch on the whole transparency thing with Dr. Menace, just from research and trying to do the homework, I actually found a former newspaper where he they actually put in the paper that he pretty much been campaigning on the whole transparency thing, but yet in 2017, he still had not filed his disclosure. He didn't file his disclosures for 2015 up to then.
Okay, so like I said, he just kept saying it, and it was like so obvious that he was just putting it out there. I guess he figured that if he said it, they would believe it. Say it, you believe it. Yeah, so I don't know what they did for more transparency and accountability, but they said it. Yeah, okay, so these are the 5 domains on how a country is risk rated. And like I say, of course, countries will not want to be high risk because nobody does business with a high risk jurisdiction. And plus you're subjected to higher borrowing rates as well as enhanced due diligence. And in my small company, if we have to carry out enhanced due diligence on you, you are charged $50 and $100, okay? For a low or medium account, it's $250. For high risk, it's $50 and $100, and that's just on the client level. Could you imagine on the country level? And the fees associated. So of course, no country wants to be high risk. Okay, so risk methodology explains how it should clearly set out how it works. It should leverage internal and external information. It should be easy to update, explainable and operational to staff in the business. And so what happens with us is, when we create this risk rating, where do we get nationalities rating from? Where do we find out what the rating of Spain and Switzerland is? Or the Bahamas, right? From the Basel Committee or Transparency Act International. That's where we find out domicile. That's where we find out country of work, what rating they all have. Where do we find out what percent a professional sector rating is? What do we use? Okay, and so just like how the Bahamas rating has gone up, we need to make sure that we update our forms internally. Okay, because what is happening in a lot of institutions at the bottom of the forms, and I always tell people to go and check this. Whenever you get an application or a form, look to see if at the bottom it should say / and a year. That means that's the year that that form was created. You know, and I have audited institutions at 2003 and it was 2018. Okay, laws have changed. Each account opening document is supposed to expire every 10 years. Okay, but if you are risk rating, you know, clients, you have to, and you're using the Basel Committee. The Basel Committee updates every year. Transparency International update every year. So every year you have to do a review of your forms because these are the regulators that you're leveraging on to give you this information. Okay, and like I say, a lot of people, where's Russia? A lot of people thought Russia was high risk. No, Russia is 5 points lower than us. And they are a sanctioned country. Hello? Okay, so Royal Bank just said, oh, we're not going to do business with Russia. Because of course, if we did, we'd want that to be high risk. Okay, so you can be more stringent than the regulator. You can't be less stringent than the regulator. Royal Bank just said Russia is not in our appetite. Okay, but obviously in the Bahamas, when we sanctioned Russia, we had billion or $1 million worth of Russian assets. Okay, so sometimes, sorry, yes?
Billion.
Billion?
Yes.
Yeah, billion. So that means it was in some of the institution's appetite. I can tell you it's the Swiss banks. I'd be very surprised if any of the Canadian banks had Russian clients. Okay, so we have $4 billion. That means that these Swiss institutions had Russia in their appetite. Okay, all right, so we understand methodology. Okay, and so then it goes on to identifying and assessing risk. And it talks about there are 4 steps to identifying and assessing risk. Okay, and then it says risk identification. This is the company's exposure to risk, which requires external knowledge of the market and the company. Anybody familiar with a SWOT analysis, where it talks about the strengths, the weaknesses. So, sorry?
No, I was saying the SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities.
Correct. And it was risk identification, that's what we would want to use. We'd want to complete a SWOT analysis. Okay. You should have knowledge of the company's strategic and operational objectives, along with the threats and opportunities related to the achievement of those objectives. And again, you need to know the risk appetite of the company, because before it used to be kept a secret. I don't know why. Okay, but again, like I said, we don't want the salespeople out there buddying up with peps and saying, yeah, man, we go open this account for you, when we don't have appetite for peps. We don't want you talking to Cubans. We don't want you talking to Venezuelans, because we don't have an appetite for them. Okay. No high risk jurisdictions, we don't have an appetite for them. Okay, and you want to look at these various companies, because I audited a company and we normally give them a form to fill out, and on that form I asked specifically, do you accept companies who offer bearer shares? They said yes. I said, do you do business with sanctioned countries? They said yes. I said, primarily, which country are your customers from? They said Russia, China, and Cuba. So I said, would you consider your business high, medium, or low? And guess what they put? Low.
So
So I say, okay, we need to have a training here before we continue this, because if you're doing business with sanctioned countries, if you're doing business with bearer share accounts, and if you're doing business with pets, unless you only have one each of those customers, It's no way. It's no way possible you could be low risk. Okay. So I just want you to ensure that you make it make sense. Okay. And when audit comes in, this is what they do. They look at your anti-money laundering directive. They look at your policies and procedures, and they test you based on what you have written. Because almost everybody, the first test I start with is, what do you consider an undesirable account, whether it's alleged or charged? And of course, the conservative banks say, oh, we are alleged. So I say, but you have these 5 people who were, it was alleged on your books. Look at the word Jeff hit. How, so I write them up right there, because they obviously don't understand what they wrote. Because a lot of institutions are just copying and pasting what the regulator says. We offer this project, cut that out. We offer this service, cut that out. And let's make up our AML directive, and it's fine. But you need to understand what you have written, and you have to make it make sense. Okay? Then risk analysis. Okay, again, that's like the risk rating form. Okay, this is an assessment of the probability that an event will occur and the consequence. So you mark them high, medium, or low, and then you review them annually if they're high, every 2 years if they're medium, every 3 years if they're low. Okay, then risk evaluation. The company's risk appetite will determine whether to accept the risk, taking no action, or avoid the risk. Should we not open this account at all? Okay. And then the criteria for deciding which risk to be escalated, and the board or the risk committee. Okay, there's another thing I like to write everybody up for. All these committees, AML committee, compliance committee, account opening committee, what have you. Okay, it has to have a mandate. Nobody knows what the mandate says. Nobody knows how many people have to vote in order for this account to be open. The CEO, who in charge of sales, always sitting up on that board. So they always can say, yes, this account must open. So you may say, okay, I need three people to approve it for us to open this account. Of course, the CEO is always going to say yes, because he's in charge of sales. Okay, so look at these committee mandates and make sure they make sense, and make sure there are no conflicts. Okay, because you will get written up for that, and you're sitting up on the board. Okay, make the board, before it used to be just staff needed to get training, but now it's the board, it's consultants, it's all the external asset managers that sit around the world. Everybody has to get training on Bahamian law. Okay. And then risk treatment. This includes risk control, mitigation, risk avoidance, and risk transfer. Again, I sign on behalf of Royal Bank of Canada. Hackers and scammers are smarter than us. Okay, and so once Miss Bullet is in negligent, then the indemnity insurance will pay. That's on my signature. But a lot of us don't even know if our companies have indemnity insurance on our signatures. We just happy that we could sign on behalf of the company. Be so happy he's a manager, and we sign it every day. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hi. So I had a question about or yes, you can verify for me about the risk treatment. So when I was a teller at Scotia, like in 2017, right? We would have customers come and like do whatever transactions that they want to do at the teller. And we were instructed to check their accounts to see if they had credit cards. And then we were supposed to also check to see if there were any documentation on file in the system to see if any insurance forms were filled out. And if they weren't, we had to refer them to a personal banking officer so that they could go ahead and fill out these forms and submit them. So like the forms were for in the event that the person, I guess, had passed away, the insurance would have covered the whatever was owed on the credit cards.
Yeah,
so is that
that's a sales strategy, and also like to indemnify, I guess, because with Scotiabank has a lot of products and service, and you can, if you qualify for something, there was a big ring going on there where 1 year the salesperson in Freeport had won, right? And so their strategy was to, how they had won was, if you came in for an increase on your credit card, you didn't get any points for an increase, so they gave you a new credit card, and they gave you a line of credit, and then everything you could put insurance on. Right? And so that person, that's how bought one. And so I think that was just a strategy to sell this insurance. But you cannot make people get an insurance on a credit card. That has to be upfront. So either it's cash secured or you get the insurance. But if you offer them credit and it's not cash secured, they have the right to deny that insurance. So I think that was a sales strategy right there. But that did indemnify the credit card, meaning if the person did, I don't know if they didn't pay, but if they died, then it'd be covered. Was it a debt or for collections as well?
I think it's so if they were to pass away, I think that they would still be able to collect for their credit cards. I think that's what it was.
Right. But again, people say I have life insurance. So I think that was a sales strategy. If you are regulated by the Securities Commission, you must have an indemnity insurance. Okay. So that's a part of you being approved. They don't approve you without an indemnity insurance.
Okay, because I was wondering if it's something that came in to effect back then, like they didn't have it before. And
no, indemnity insurance has always been around, but most banks are regulated by the central bank. The central bank is not a requirement for the indemnity because they have reserves.
Right.
They hold reserves. So the Securities Commission makes you get this indemnity insurance.
Okay.
Which I think is separate and apart from an indemnity insurance being on yes. If you sign on behalf of Royal Bank and they prove that you were not negligent and the company was defrauded, the insurance would pay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a couple times. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So make sure if you're signing, before they add you to that signatory list, you inquire. Am I indemnified for my signature in the event of fraud? I'd like to know. If you're not, be very careful. Okay, so identifying and assessing risk. You're keeping up? We good?
Yeah, just a lot. I gotta get this class.
Yeah, but don't worry, Kendrick. Like I said, it's 4 chapters on risk, and we can keep talking about it. And eventually, by chapter 7, it gets set in. It's cloudy at first. Don't try to, don't get a headache over it just here. By the 3rd class, if you don't get it, then we worry, but not yet.
Ms. Bullitt.
Yes.
I know I'm jumping ahead, but I mean, as we progress through your course and in preparation for the exam, I'm sure we will have a review period, and I guess not that some things are more important than others, but more so, are we like pointed or suggested in a particular area what to focus on, what not to focus on? Because there's a lot of information. So
yeah. There is a review class, and there's classwork, and so the classwork are all past exam questions, and also the homework are past exam questions. Okay, compliance is very complex, a lot of information, a lot of reading, but it is achievable. So I am only pulling out what is required. You could speak to Ria, Kendrick, Eddie. They might say I talk too much too, and Julian. Yeah, ask them. Everything that I say is beyond the exam or too much.
Everything that we went over, like I'm not exaggerating when I say everything that Ms. Bullard mentioned in the review class was on the exam. Everything that she mentioned was on the exam, and nothing that she didn't mention was on the exam. So it wasn't nothing surprising. And as long as you actually pay attention in the review class, make sure, and then throughout the classes when it's mentioned that something is going to come on the exam, what I did was make note of that, and 100% whatever it was that was mentioned that was coming on the exam was definitely on the exam. So the review class is extremely helpful. Um, so I don't think you should worry in that aspect.
And Bria, you are a different version of the exam. So I'm happy that you said that. You Freeport people had another version. Okay. Okay.
Gerardo, just remember that we tried to have the pharmaceutical persons reduce the price on some of the drugs. You will definitely need a lot of headache medication when it comes to Miss Bullard.
But it's achievable, Julian, because you are here. You are here, right? You are here, and you're happy to be here, Julian. I know that. I know that. Okay, because me and Julian, every class, I would say Julian in the class and intro. Every week we had a fight, but he is here, so and it's achievable. So very good. Okay, so again, walk away with, of course, recommendation 1, risk appetite, risk assessment, risk rating, methodology, understand how it works, and then let's look at the control library. And again, let me see if I can pull one up so you'd understand exactly what I'm saying. The control library would look something like this, okay? So remember now, a risk assessment is only as good as the day is completed. Ms. Bullard teaching this class, but the pandemic come and I can't feed my children. I handcuffs, right? I before the courts. So for administrative purposes, you would risk rate each function, high, medium, or low, so you would know how often you need to look at this control, right? And so every single function, this normally like a 20-page document, just every single function it would be in your control library. So you would say who was responsible, what audit area, the process of account opening, and you ensure all new business relationship or within the bank's risk appetite, approve in accordance with local and international regulatory frameworks. And what if we don't do this? It could cause us reputational risk. What are the inherent risks? Accounts could be opened without the appropriate approvals. High, medium, or low for mitigating control. For accounts rejected by compliance, private banking can escalate to compliance committee. Monthly review, we check 100% of the accounts open. Under filing, we check only 25%. Okay, because we would check 100% already. And so in terms of making sure all files are removed from the cabinet that are logged out, and we get everything back that, nothing was removed from the file. We had a problem where, I had to go down to Royal Bank Miami and do a training because as persons were let go, like they were very stringent on their targets and meeting their targets. And so a lot of salespersons, if they didn't meet their targets, they were let go. And so at that point, the document control room was just open. People could just go and get files. And you have to remember that this file is the legal document that should you have to show up in court, you have originals, you have the customer signature. And that's why it's important that you don't tamper with that file and nothing is removed. And that you can find this file when you need to show up in court. So a lot of salespeople were walking on the bank with files or putting files in the shredder. Okay, and so of course we got an online system where we scan documents, we turn files off completely. If you wanted to get a file, you had to come to the document control room and sit in there and look through a file. okay? And then in order to check the files to make sure that they were in numerical order, because of course, filing is a very tedious, job. And I always say a senior person should be in that file room and in that archiving room, because when you're looking for stuff and that person just had stuff thrown about, you have a very big problem. Okay. And of course, we all know I worked at Royal Bank. We were sued we were shut down, sued by the French government. And we had to send we got production orders and we had to send, I am talking about more than 1,000 documents into France. And you want us to tell every document that we couldn't find was $500. I'm talking about one page. Okay. So, yeah. All right. So control library.
Ms. Bullitt,
Yeah.
in reference to those various court orders, having did two of the questions on the exam with that. I always want to know, do you have a sample of how a production order or an unexplained wealth order and those different, how one would look, like maybe a precedent or something?
Yeah, but again, all that is confidential stuff, right? So it's just a letter, from the FIU that say it come from the director of the FIU. I think it's McCartney now, just on their letterhead, and it tell you, I want Miss Bullitt, all our KYC, and this transaction of February 7th for 17,000 like that. Just a letter.
And this is,
and it says
for the police,
in the topic production order.
So the police would actually request it, or the FIU would request it?
No, the FIU sends that to the compliance officer and the CEO. So you get two completely separate letters that are sealed, that are addressed. These are confidential, sent to the CEO, to the MLRO.
No, but I want to know, okay, if the police are doing an investigation, is this facilitated through the FIU, or does the FIU engage in it?
Yes.
And contacts the police? Yeah,
the FIU, I don't know if they have police on staff, but they turn it over to the police for investigation. So the police investigate. They just look at it and say, well, yes, this could be a possible case, and then they investigate.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were closing down and we had like 4 clients that were being monitored by the FIU. And the FIU was very adamant to say, we want to see if these people could pass the KYC onboarding process at this new institution. And I said, okay. So they say, so let them go ahead and close out their account and let them transfer that money. And the minute that they hit that money hit that bank and they approved that account, they went into them. Because they wanted to say, these 4 persons, that means there's negative media out there, world check there, saying all these things, these persons charged with money laundering, what have you, and you onboarding them. What type of onboarding KYC identification process you have in place? It have to be weak. Yeah, so monitoring for thresholds. What policy does that fall under? Escalation and exit process. Controls to reduce risk of tipping off. Rules-based training. Everybody has to have 1 year AML training, but the persons that work in the wire ring department has to be trained twice a year. Okay? All of that needs to be in your control library. What do you do? Monitoring with thresholds, again, back to the signatory list. We have A signatories and B signatories, and then it tells you who could sign, either 2 A's for up to 100,000 or an A and a B for 25,000, like that. So all of those are controls that we put in place to protect the institution against fraud or money leaving the bank without senior management knowing. Okay, all of those are in the control library. And then it says a compliance officer has to has to report his or her findings, sampling, and we looked at, when I said we check 100% of the accounts open, and then we go into the filing room and we check 25% of the files to make sure that they are being filed properly. A thing that's happening in organizations now is that for some reason, they're letting compliance complete the annual reviews, which means if you're high risk, you should be reviewed every year, low every 2 years, sorry, every 3 years, and medium every 2 years. So if the compliance checking or completing the review, first of all, compliance can't call the customers. So what review is compliance doing? Is it really efficient? And then second of all, we are required to know our customers. Compliance should be not operational. That makes them operational. Compliance should be completely separate from the institution. So you can't call customers. You're supposed to be completely separate. You're not supposed to be operational, but you're conducting a client review. Does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely
And
not.
then that means you have the checker checking the checker. Who checks if you completing it, Kendra?
Say again, ma'am?
Who, if you is compliant and you completing the review, who checking it? The checker checking the checker, right?
Yeah, the checker got to check the checker. Then
Okay,
we can
so
start
there,
playing chess.
yeah. So there's no proper segregation of duties. Okay, and we find that that happens a lot, and there, is a lot of risk associated with that. Okay, so you want to test your processes, test them to make sure they make sense. You want to make sure that you have your policies and procedures documented. People are aware what they say. Gone are the days when you can look at policy and procedure and talk about, oh, that book too thick, or nobody understand that. You better understand it. You better understand the manual that, if you work in operations or in HR and credit, you better understand that credit manual. Again, I keep saying hackers and scammers are smarter than us. The only way you do not go to jail, because you're all poor, you none of us get $1 billion, nothing. Rich people don't go to jail. Okay, you better could explain that you were not negligent. And how do you explain that you're not negligent? My AML policy says this. My operational policy says this. This is my job function. Every task that I carry out is on my job description. Okay, all of that is very important. Okay, regulators focus on what a company documents about what it does. A regulator would want to see documented procedures. On return visits, it has established benchmarks of what's in place and what it can do to measure performance. Okay, and like I said, once these policies and procedures are in place, they need to be enforced. And I was at a seminar today where they kept talking about regulation, and as we watch this FTX, whatever you want to call it, go on the TV every day, it doesn't make sense if you have regulation and it isn't enforced. Just like it doesn't make sense if you have policy and procedures and persons are not trained and persons don't understand, the risks associated with the work that they do daily. Okay, so enforcement is important. And most of these companies just thinking about their bottom line. But I mean, the level of like deficiencies that they are saying at FTX, like people, approve accounts over text. The account system was hacked into. Nobody replied. All sorts of, KYC deficiencies. It's crazy. Okay, to know that a $1 billion company operating that way. Okay, so make sure that you don't work there, because almost everybody who worked there should be in jail because they did not file a STR or STA, suspicious activity report, and say, I realized a gap in our system, or they didn't make reports to the MLRO. Okay, and definitely the MLRO, who is supposed to be keeping the organization compliant, and the lawyer and the legal team, Really?
Ms. Bullet.
Yeah.
Miss Bullet,
Yes.
I'm concerned by the fact that I don't know how many people within the class have read the Dare Act, right? Um, but my challenge with the whole debacle is that most of the depositors and those that would have acquired digital wallets using online banking transactions from the various banks, at least 85% of them would have been from jurisdictions outside of the Bahamas, and 77% of them would have come out of the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for 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 amounts that were deposited into these wallets, um, in a blockchain type of of business coming out of a jurisdiction like the US, the volumes leaving bank accounts at that level. Why did it take an Asian blockchain uh, uh, individual, crypto mogul millionaire himself, to blow the whistle on an individual whom was initially a friend of his, um, previous partner, um, wanted to buy the company for other regulators overseas to get involved before our people did. What? Why? Because I mean, the majority of the people affected, whose monies are now tied up in this thing, are coming from a jurisdiction where the SST, I mean the U.S. regulators, um, appeared to have been pretty okay with this before certain things happened.
Yeah, but and listen, cryptocurrency was created to not be regulated. That's the first thing. And in 1990 something by some young guy who was 18 or 19. That's the first thing. Okay? Because regulation means that Uncle Sam now gets his piece of the pie, right? And the US has, just like other jurisdictions, have not figured out how to tax to make sure that, just like the stock market, every time you invest, Uncle Sam gets what, 40% withholding tax, right? So there are no laws in the US as yet. And so again, they allow it to go to neighboring jurisdictions who are willing to take on the rest. Okay, so that's that's what happened. So it isn't abnormal. Just like we were a tax haven for many years, right? And so people establish offshore accounts. And so what Alameda was supposed to be was now a regulated exchange. And to my understanding, there are regulated exchanges and unregulated exchanges, right? And so the exchange is the company that has the responsibility to check KYC, to make sure that persons are paying whatever tax or what have you, are doing whatever they are supposed to. Okay, so the exchange is responsible for that. So it's the same, like I say, they are investing. So many Americans are investing until America could put out their act so that they could get their tax. That's what regulation means. We could get our tax. What the Bahamas is do, like what we did to our gaming license. Everywhere else, there's a national lottery. We gave our lottery to 8 individuals, right? So the country, these 8 individuals make $550 million a year, rather than the country making 500, and the country that is in debt, mind you. So it's like a capitalist nation. The country that in debt gives the licenses, and guess what we could do? They made 550 million. We could charge them $1 million. So they get the, that's 8 million out of 550 million, and they get to keep the rest. Okay, so the
That's
same thing
quite
with
correct.
yeah, same thing with
That's
the
quite correct.
cryptocurrency.
I agree with you on that. One of
Yeah.
the flaws in that act is, where if you're running such an exchange, the server for the exchange, seeing that you're registered here for that type of technology and operation, the server should reside inside country, and he was allowed to get away with that part of it.
Yeah, but see, we can't really say nothing because we allow Royal Bank them to do the same thing. Their service sit in the Channel Islands. So, like I tell you, these things were taught, Julian. And if you watch, like I said, if you watch Inside a Job, you will see why the young investors coming up, they really don't care because they were taught how to afford the system. They are taught just to make the right connections. They are taught that the government is going to protect you. And then they are given positions. Okay, so those Americans who invested here, like I say, the Securities Commission, they come up with the DARE Act, and then they say just probably like the number houses, we could charge them $1 million a license, because that's a lot of money for the Bahamas, right? How much these digital licenses cost? Because I mean, a banking license only costs $70,000, right? So what is $1 million when you have 32 billion? You see what I mean? So all of that makes it attractive. Our judicial system being backed up for years makes it attractive. Our government being seen as some people you could pay on the table, everybody want a tip, makes it attractive. Okay. And so until Uncle Sam to get their money, they just spent $18 million to upgrade their IRS so they could just receive taxes from around the world for FACA. They fall under FACA. So trust me, they working to see how they can regulate this industry to receive their withholding tax, and they haven't gotten to that yet. The Bahamas ain't worrying, but no withholding tax. We don't, they worry about we could get $1 million for their license. So I guess the strategy is different.
But Trump owed them close to 18 million. So, I mean, they should get the 18 million to pay it off quick.
Julian, only poor people go to jail. Trump has claimed bankruptcy 13 times. 13.
Yeah,
Is he poor? Is he homeless? Is he living on a street?
And while president, he never disclosed his financial. So
Okay.
I don't know why we pressuring minister to disclose this.
I did a project on Nobel Peace Prize winners, and that was years ago, and that had to be like say in 2004 or 5, and with that Nobel Peace Prize winner said, where are the regulators and all this from then? So if he's still alive, I know he's rolling on the ground. Okay. The regulators they regulate our industry that they don't understand. We gotta do away with our MP giving us a job. I mean, I don't mind if the MP give you a job, but you need to now educate yourself, learn the industry, and learn the risks associated with it, because these are the people who in charge. And like I say, some of these people that come to the class, you would be very, very, very surprised and say, I understand why. I really understand why. But like I say, our laws just came out in 2018. It's too new. The DARE bill in 2020, when it was a pandemic, they didn't even read that yet. Okay. And then again, like I say, back to my 15 rotten accounts paved the way for my, who I am today. So I was very upset and everybody laughed at me, but I learned the entire private banking and trust system from them very bad 50 accounts. So let's see if the Securities Commission will learn, and the rest of the world who want to implement digital, cryptocurrency laws, will they learn? Probably not. Will they enforce? Probably not. Nobody else has gone to jail. I don't see why he will. And at the end of the day, the people lose. And when you watch inside a job, you will see that from Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, pensioners lost their life savings. Nobody went to jail. These people were promoted to director of finance and director of the Fed. Okay? So awareness training and you'll understand how the world works. Build up your network. Let it be as strong as Bin Laden network where you could live comfortably for 10 years doing the right thing. Okay? That's how the world is. Okay? Any questions or concerns on risk?
No, good so far.
No. Okay, guys. Like I say, as we talk about it more, Gerardo, it's going to get clear. It is a lot of information, but you really need to, clear your schedule. That's the first thing. And this isn't a class where you can multitask, right? You'll miss out a lot. So you need to get some help at home. I always tell persons this. Most people who don't do well in my class, they don't do well is because they are overwhelmed. But if you show up to class and you participate, you have to get somebody to keep the children. You have to get somebody to pick them up from school. You got to get somebody to cook because you're going to need some downtime for this to be, for you to be able to retain it. It's very complex. You can't retain it if you're overwhelmed. You need your head to be clear. You have to feel good. You have to do whatever you like to do. You have to find a way to relieve yourself and then digest this. Okay, there's a big pill to swallow, but it's achievable. Go ahead, Bria.
Yeah, no, I didn't think you was gonna get to my hand yet. You could continue with the closing remarks for the class, and I got a question about the homework.
Yeah. So go and get some help. I tell everybody that. Go and get some help with the kids. Go and get some help at home, and for the next, we're on week 4 already. So we have 6 weeks left. For the next 6 weeks, please just clear your schedule. Even speak to your jobs because if they get, if they're paying for you to come to school, they should give you time off to study. They should give you definitely study leave when it's the final exam. Okay, and so get some support at work. We had somebody in this class and we used to let them get off 3 o'clock every day. They worked from 9 to 3 and just so they could pay attention and be successful. So look at what type of flexibility your office offers. You'll be very surprised. Pull out your employee handbook and see if there are any benefits or concessions there, because it ain't easy to work from 9 to 5 and then deal with life and this class. Okay, so don't be overwhelmed. Please get some help.
Excuse me, Ms. Bullard.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm preempting the young lady. The homework itself is not to be turned in, it's just for us to compile the necessary information and learn it, right?
No, the classwork is not to be handed in. The homework, you are to select one question and submit one question for homework.
Oh, that's the essay.
Yeah, the essay.
Okay, all right.
The
thank you.
classwork is just for you to do research and to see if you're able to answer the questions after we had the class. If not, then come back to the following class and let's discuss it to make sure all of us are on the same page.
Thank you, Mel.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? No? Okay, guys. So try to have a productive week and take care. And Bria, go ahead, Bria. Sorry.
Yeah. I didn't see you reply. That's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. I had emailed you a rough draft because I wasn't able to
I have
ask.
it real.
Oh.
I get you some feedback. You only want feedback, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
really, it was a lot going on.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, by next week, what today is?
The 22nd.
Tuesday. Yeah. So by next week, Monday, all of you should have your grade, who submitted homework, and you get your feedback as well.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Another, I just, I noticed, I think, Mr. Pratt might have missed out, one of the classes. Because I had missed out, I think that class I had missed out, when I came in extremely late with the power was off. I was looking, I think that's the 15th. I think that was either the 15th or the 8th November. I don't see it, so I was like, I'm gonna email, so can I email, Mr. Pratt and remind him, because
Yes.
I going through the, yeah, because I noticed he missed that, and he missed the review class we had. Remember the last review class we had for the introduction? I think that's
Okay.
the November 5th. Yeah, he didn't put that one up because I was looking to watch that so I could pick up some of the points we was discussing for the exam. So I think, but anyhow, so just I could just email him on whatever class he missed. I think it's last week or week before last. He hasn't put up as yet.
Right. Right.
And I
Yeah.
noticed
Just
it.
send him an email and he'll put it up.
Okay, that's remind him. Just let him know. Okay.
Right.
All right. So I'll do that because I have to go back and
Okay.
watch over what he missed out.
Okay. Okay, guys. So no other questions or concerns. You'll have a fabulous week. I'll see you again next week.
Oh, if there's anyone new in the class, you could just type your number in the chat and I'll add it to the WhatsApp group. I think it's one name I recognize now.
Yeah, Sawyer, Crescenda, if you want to be added to, there's a WhatsApp group. Yeah, you could just send your number. Okay. Okay, guys. All right. Have a good evening. I'll see you next week.
All right, good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
All right, take care.
Good night.
All right.